What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you. So one that I had on my radar, and I had to be patient for because it kept getting pushed back, was the newest offering from Belphegor, The Devils. This comes out on the 28th of July on Nuclear Blast Records. This band formed in 1992 in Austria. This is their 12th full length, and this is fucking blackened death metal. These guys have been, I would say, one of the fucking progenitors of that whole style for years now. And I've been following them for, God, a number of years. I think probably Walpurgis might have been the first one. So not quite their early stuff, but kind of the middle, era of their career. Either way, I really got into this band. I like their fucking just brutality and their fucking atmosphere and this perfect little marriage of black metal and death metal. Now, this album does feature Dave Diepold on drums. I believe he's at least the session drummer on here. From Obscura and Cognizance, he does a fucking fantastic job. And going into this album, I'm not really sure what my expectations were. I mean, their last couple of releases I thought were pretty solid. Conjuring the Dead, maybe one of their weaker albums, but I still liked it. I think maybe it had to do with the Eric Bertan mix. Was just not a fan of it. But overall, this band is pretty damn consistent, and well, they kind of threw some different elements, or at least accentuated some elements on here that I think kind of added to this. The opening track, which the title track appropriately kicks off with some samples from some satanic movies or horror movies. I'm not sure. There's a couple of quotes in here I think might have been from that movie Stigmata with Patricia Arquette and Gabriel Byrne. Might be, I'm not entirely sure. Either way, definitely sets the mood, and it goes right into, surprisingly, not something that is blast beat driven. Blast beats are a big thing in Belphegor sound, but this album overall is a little bit more on the groovy side. Like, there's more groove to mid-tempo. There's definitely some fast, gnarly tracks in here, but this kind of sets the pace for, well, kind of what most of this album is, which is heavy, brutal. Like, there are almost brutal death elements on here. Like, it gets stupid fucking heavy on here. And that is not to say Belphegor has not been, like, heavy before. Belphegor has released nothing but heavy stuff. But this feels decidedly more brutal and less, like, black metal evil this time. This opening track has a really cool dissonant tag on the main riff, but the main riff itself feels way more rooted in death metal, as does a good chunk of this album. And I'm talking about, like, really heavy stuff. Like, there's some Dying Fetus-esque moments on here. There are some Suffocation-style breakdowns, too. But, of course, a lot of old-school death metal like Vader and Morbid Angel. But the overall vibe of this, it really kind of just likes to flip around. And that's kind of a cool thing on this album, is the pacing kind of allows each track to stand out. Like, they don't throw too many similar sounding tracks back to back. In fact, there's a lot of variety on here. Songs like Kingdom of Cold Flesh, and forgive my lack of any Austrian, Totenstanz, Dance Macabre. I don't know, I'm not good at Austrian, but then again, I'm not good at pronouncing any foreign language, so kind of par for the course there. Those songs both embody their more black metal side. They're decidedly more fast, more cold sounding. There's a lot more tremolo melodies. Even the vocals take a shift to a more black metal register, where it's more of like a dry kind of mid-register growl. There's a lot of low, brutal vocals on here, and that's always been kind of part of the wheelhouse in terms of their vocal delivery, but there seems to be a lot more on here, and again, this kind of gives the album more of a death metal sound overall. It's generally something I look for in, like, all fusions, is which side they lean to. Some of them blend it perfectly where you can't really say it's one or the other, and then others lean to one style more than the other. And this one, I feel like it's leaning really heavily on the death metal side with songs like Damnation Hohenstars, I don't know exactly what that means, and Ritus Incendium Diabolis, which at least that's Latin and I can kind of pronounce that. Both of these songs are exceptionally brutal. Ritus really kind of navigates between black metal and death metal really well, but they're very distinct sections. It opens up with what I could almost call a blackened slam riff. It's thick, chuggy, compressed. It just has a slam groove to it, and then it pivots back and forth between that and like a blast beat section with cold tremolo riffs. And hearing the vocals switch between the two, like, it's really just pretty fucking wild to listen to. Both styles seem to be working in tandem and sort of playing off of each other in that song, and this song delivers some of the nastiest, hookiest fucking riffs on the entire album, as far as like a flat-out brutal song goes. And Damnation Hollandsters, however you say that last one, maybe it's Hollandsters, I don't know. That song is way more on the death metal side almost entirely, like, except for maybe a little flurry towards the end where it kind of has a breakdown riff that's, yeah, a little bit more black metal. Overall, it sort of holds the course on death metal. And I was kind of surprised at how much death metal took over, but also in terms of like different styles of death metal. Virtus Ascenaria Prayer. This song is very anthemic, very melodic. It's almost like melodic black metal meets melodic death metal. Like kind of somewhere between like Hypocrisy and Dissection. Like there's a lot of really awesome melodies through it. The vocals are primarily a chant, which Gothic chants are kind of all over this too, and it's kind of a cool atmospheric thing. But the whole vibe of the song is sort of driven. It's sort of like a anthemic march. Or rather than a funeral march, it's more of a funeral power walk. I don't know really how to describe it, but it has a very cold, somber vibe. But at the same time, it feels kind of triumphant at the same time. And again, like the thing I usually expect from Belphegor is still on here, but there's a lot of different stuff on here too. One thing I definitely expected that was on here and employed very well were Middle Eastern melodies. There are always some really catchy Middle Eastern melodies. I mean, I know their name kind of stems from like a translation of Baal, an ancient Sumerian demon or some shit. I don't know, that just totally makes fucking sense for them. But how they mix in Middle Eastern melodies with like cold tremolo riffing and flat out brutal death metal riffs, I think is absolutely top notch. It's one of the things I look forward to hearing in their riffs, and get it right away with the title track. Kingdom of Cold Flesh 2 opens up with a really cool, distinct, melodic, you know, Middle Eastern riff that kind of just sets it up. These guys kind of remind me of like a blackened death metal version of Nile at some points. They both have a flair for the epic. They both love their atmosphere. They're both exceptionally brutal when they need to be, but they know how to employ clever melodies that become kind of a signature thing. I am also a big fan of the dynamics on this album. The dynamics on this album, I think, are fantastic. This isn't just so like brutality forward or just evil forward, like blast beats and just, you know, chugs and tremolos. There's a lot of cool songwriting on here. Forgive me, I'm going to butcher this one. Glorifying Day Death to Fills. Probably fucking murdered that one, and now all of Austria hates me. The song opens up with a dreary acoustic sort of melody, and honestly the whole song kind of takes on like a blackened Death Doom vibe. And like, not like a evil sort of vibe, but more of a dark gothic vibe. This is where the chanted vocals start coming in. And honestly, the whole thing, it just feels bleak and somber. And somber generally isn't the main thing for Belphegor. Belphegor is all about evil and naked chicks covered in blood. Pretty sure there's a lot of that. But this song pivots between the acoustic melodies and kind of like a groaning spoken word to flat out brutal riffs with a great cold tremolo riff on top of it. The atmosphere is just bleak as hell. And this is the third track on here, and it follows a flat out brutal opener with the title track and Totenstan's Dance Macabre. I don't know, probably screwed that one up again, which is a far more black metal song and high energy. So you get a nice mid-tempo stomper, a flat out blast beat riddled rager of a song, and then this slow, gloomy dirge of a song. And that already had me kind of entranced with the pacing of it because each song really stood out on here. I also have to say I really like the production here. This is a Jens Bogren job, and I'm a big fan of his mix. Granted, they are definitely more polished, definitely more clean, but he knows how to get like a good sound out of a band, and the guitars are super crunchy, the drums sound really nice. Everything sits well in the mix, and it's not overdone with so much extra atmosphere. Like there's occasional keys on here and some movie samples, which I have to say with the samples that precede the title track and Totenstan's Dance Macabre, I'm gonna keep saying that wrong, both of those could have been the opener. But both of them set a completely different pace. And honestly, The Devils is the right way to open this up because that is a good chunk of this. This is definitely more groove-laden, more brutal, and man, this is just a heavy, heavy fucking listen. Now, there were some minor issues or some takeaways from this. Overall, this album, it feels like it's trying to appeal to a younger demographic, like a group of kids that wouldn't necessarily listen to Belphegor. They're more after, again, brutal death metal. So fans that like more of the more slammy deathcore out there with symphonic elements like, you know, Shadow of Intent maybe. I think could actually latch onto this. And while I think it's done really well, I think some older fans might see this as maybe like a shift in their musical identity just a little bit. And at the same time, I wouldn't call this an experimental album. This is just them showing off their wheelhouse. Because, I mean, the brutal elements, I think, have always been there, but I think it just feels more focused, particularly on just adding some more brutal death elements this time. And there are a couple of tracks that I do think drag a little bit. Virtuous, A Scenario Prayer. Well, I like it. I like the mood shift. Again, that, you know, dark, sullen march in the fucking swamps or whatever the fuck there is in Austria. It's a good song, but I feel like it kind of just lays on one section a little bit too long. Like, it's pretty, but I don't know, it feels a bit long for what it is. And honestly, it feels like it should have been an instrumental. There are vocals on it. They're kind of the big chanted choirs with some growls underneath, and I like how they're mixed, but I feel like they just kind of repeat the same lines in two different sections. And honestly, as an instrumental, I don't know, I think it would have just captured me a little bit more. And then the last song, Creature of Fire, is cool. It's very atmospheric, opens up with like isolated war drums and sort of builds into this giant satanic seance of a song, except it shifts all the way to Egypt with a really cool, like, you know, Middle Eastern bridge with some female vocals that kind of sound like that long singing part in the song Smack My Bitch Up. I love that song. I love that part, but I don't know. This one just kind of feels like an extra outro on here. Now, if you do get the CD digipack of this, you do get Blackest Sabbath 97, or 1997 rather, which is a medley of the songs Blackest, Ecstasy, and Blut Sabbath from the album Blut Sabbath in 1997. It's pretty much just a re-recording and a combination of the two songs, and honestly, it sounds flat out awesome and contains some of the most, you know, black metal centric parts in this entire album, because again, this feels more like a death metal album with black metal atmosphere, which isn't a bad thing at all. I really dig the overall vibe of this album. It's dark, it's fucking riffy, and way more brutal than I was expecting. So overall, I'm gonna give this 3.5 stars. I dig this album. This is a solid Belphegor album. It's a little bit different, and honestly, maybe with more listens, it may grow on me, but overall, right out of the gate, I like this one. It kind of stands out a little bit from maybe the last two. The production's a lot better. Again, those brutal elements really fucking just jump out at you in here. But honestly, I think they sacrifice a little bit of the black metal, maybe too much, but at the same time, I like death metal. So I don't know, it's a combination of two things I love. I just get one thing I love a little bit more than another thing I love. So I don't know if that's really a complaint. Well, I mean, it's kind of one. I still think longtime fans of this band are probably going to dig this. It's fucking heavier than hell, and there's still enough black metal atmosphere in there to keep it nice and evil, but I think this might actually, you know, appeal to some people that don't necessarily listen to black and death metal and, you know, listen to more like, you know, brutal death and slam, because there's definitely some elements of that. And if you're just a casual death metal fan, I think you're gonna fucking love the riffs on here. I mean, this is a pretty damn consistent band. I pretty much knew I was gonna like it just judging by the singles, but this actually turned into a much different album than I was expecting. Again, good variety in here, good pacing, solid album. I mean, if you love Belphegor, I strongly recommend it. And if you have never checked them out before and you're into maybe more death metal centric blackened death metal, definitely check this out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there'll be a link down below. There'll also be a link down there to thrallsmetal.com if you would like to get one of our kick-ass shirts. As for our channel news, Denver Death Fest, September 30th through October 2nd in Denver, because Denver. We should be making some announcements here soon. Again, I don't know that schedule. That is more on Miller and John. They're the ones sort of networking this. I believe there might have been like a last minute addition or just like a few particulars to go over just, you know, before announcing everything, but that announcement is coming. I just don't know when. But when I do, I'll be able to tell you even more after, you know, I'm done reviewing an album. We're also going to work on getting that Pantera ranking together. We'll see if some time frees up, maybe like mid to early August, which we're pretty close to that already. So yeah, hopefully we get that going soon. And of course, tons of other stuff coming, because I mean, it's us. We like to record videos. I like to record videos. There's gonna be more stuff with me talking about metal for damn sure. And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that stuff. We love, you know, how much this has grown. Again, grown beyond my expectations, which honestly, we're probably somewhere around 100, and now we have a lot of hundreds stacked on one another. And yeah, it's a lot, and it's absolutely awesome to see it grow. I think we've built a great community here, and it is all due to you guys. So thank you so much for just keeping us going. And with that, we will catch you later.